All right. Great. All right. Welcome, everyone. This is the regular meeting of the Shade Tree Commission of the Borough of Fairhaven. In accordance with the provisions of the Open Public Meetings Act, public meetings may be held in person or by means of communication equipment to include streaming services and other online meeting platforms. This meeting is being presented through the Zoom meeting platform. Public participation for this December 7th, 2022 Shade Tree Commission meeting is available by call-in phone number or through web conference Zoom. Members of the public will be on mute until a portion for public questions, comments, which will be announced. At that time, the public has the opportunity to comment by phone through Zoom by the raise hand button and will be called on at the appropriate time. Notice this meeting was sent to the Asbury Park Press, the Two River Times, and the Star Ledger on January 28th, 2022. Posted on the Borough website, the bulletin board, and the municipal building has remained continuously posted as required under the statute. With adequate notice having been given, the Shade Tree Commission Secretary is directed to include this statement in the minutes of this meeting. Roll call, please, Christy.
Leah Bigani. Absent. Peter D. Gotti.
Here.
Mike D'Angelo.
Present.
Kristen Hoey.
Here.
Chris Larson.
Here.
Chris McCabe. Absent. Dave Paolo.
Present.
Andrea Reed. I see your square, Andrea.
Can you hear me?
Yes, now we
Yeah,
can.
now we get it. Yeah.
Here.
Okay. Jill Sullivan. Let me check on, I don't see her online. Okay. And you have a quorum.
Outstanding. And I see you, Councilwoman Cole. Thank you for joining us. All right, if you please all rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, guys. Well, hope everybody had a good Thanksgiving holiday. Jump into well, we want to do the did anyone or everyone have a chance to review the prior meeting minutes? Any questions or concerns about the minutes? Any clarifications?
Yep.
Make a motion to approve the prior meeting minutes.
Motion to approve the minutes.
All right. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Abstain.
Okay, Mike, by the letter of the law. Thank you. All righty. Motion passes. Prior meeting minutes approved. All right, we'll jump right into project updates. Mr. McCabe, were you able to join us? No, I don't see you on there. So has anybody heard anything from the World and Land of Green team? I've not heard much. I know that there's continued activity with scout planting projects, and there's an environmental roundtable that's coming up. All are part of the collaborative initiatives between the different groups in town. So we'll wait to see if Mr. McCabe joins us and update us a little bit later. No Jill, so no tree inventory, huh? I know that what I saw was a very well crafted and thought out note to the council about requesting a request for proposal for the tree inventory for next year. It was also added into our proposed budget for the following year in the sum of $20,000. As suggested by some of the research that Jill's done, but we did not get a response from the council on that. So I would assume that this would happen probably more in January. Looking right at you, Kristen. So anyway, that's
go ahead. Is this something that we should be looking to add to the January agenda or December agenda?
Tree inventory?
Oh, yes.
Well, maybe Councilman Cole can kind of enlighten us. I think that the way this stuff works is actually, you know what, I don't want to guess. I know that it has to be budgeted line item, and we did that, which won't be approved until into the first quarter. you know, which would, and then I think like once something like that gets added to the council agenda, it has to be solved in that calendar year. And I'm just guessing that that's what the delay might be, but I don't know that for a fact. That's just kind of like me piecing together some of the things that I've learned on the way it works. Councilwoman Cole, any feedback on that?
Well, we might want to have a short discussion if that fits with your agenda.
Sure, go ahead. Yeah.
So the tree inventory and in terms of procedure, so there's two things, the procedure, and then there's sort of planning and how you implement something like the tree inventory. So procedurally, it may come up on a council agenda. Initially, it would be to workshop. The council has not had any deliberations on the topic of a tree inventory. Its purpose, you know, what would be the benefit to the residents if they were to fund it with tax dollars, what sort of grants are out there. So that level of discussion hasn't happened yet. So that would be first things first. But then there's sort of the planning and implementation part. And this is where I thought we, particularly Christy also, because I know she and I've done a little bit of research, but it sounds like, and it's going to sound convoluted, but it sounds like one of the key pieces that we need to have in place in order to even have a tree inventory and a tree planting program is to have our community forestry management plan up to date. And that can't be updated until we get the new guidelines, all of which is supposed to happen. Christy, correct me if I'm wrong, late 2023 or 2024. But when we do have those new guidelines, we would be able to then work with our tree expert to possibly get a grant to prepare the updates, have a community forestry management plan that's in compliance, and then at that time, go ahead and look for grants to support a tree inventory program as well as a tree replanting program. Do you have something to add to that?
I know Jill, in reference to the tree inventory, is looked for grants, and the next grant cycle will be in the late spring, early summer, that we'd be able to apply for to get the inventory. I do think they're mutually exclusive in terms of grant funding. Like we could apply to get the grant for the tree inventory mutually exclusive of the CFMP, because we do have one that's current and the new guidelines for the CFMP are not out yet. So ours is due at the end of 2024, but we can't even start working on it yet because we don't have the new guidelines. Is my understanding at this time.
Yeah, that's my understanding too, Christy. I did not think one was dependent on the other.
Okay.
Last conversation with Jill, but let's look into it.
But I think even that basic understanding is something council really also needs to begin to wrap their heads around. And you know, Kristen and I will go ahead and report on that as we're able to. I have made sure, at least in my council reports, that I call attention to the memos that come from the Shade Tree Commission. Because sometimes they're in a correspondence packet, which won't always be seen by every council person, but we'll keep it on the radar.
Thank you. Appreciate the update. And good clarity on the procedural side as well. Yeah, it starts with a workshop, right?
Yeah, pretty much.
Okay. All right, cool. Any other questions on that? Tree inventory or CFMP?
Do we want to try to get it on the agenda, I guess, for January? Or do we want to wait? I guess that's the call. Like, do we want to try to prioritize this for the first meeting in January, or do we think we want to wait?
That's
Can't
something.
be any, yeah. There can't be any new business at the first meeting in January. It's the reorg
Okay.
meeting.
Right.
Got it. Okay. Okay.
Okay, thanks all. Social media. I know that Leah had been working on. Well, no, Leah, actually, I'm sorry. Leah updated me today on the door knocker things, which are not social media, but it is community outreach. And I can go into that. Kristen, do you have anything on the more social media?
Not yet. I mean, we've been, the graphics have been mostly around, the last post that we had was on the awards that we got for the victory hunt, which was well received. And my latest understanding with Leah was that we were going to continue to push, the lantern flies and the importance of stomping, but I'll circle back with her.
Okay. Thank you. And I was on the subject of the doorknob hangers. Leah was able to confirm that they are of an appropriate cardstock at the reduced price, that it wouldn't look flimsy or anything on the on anybody's door. But I'll wait till she's able to update with more detail, as we were cut off on the phone call short today.
I have an update on that, actually.
Oh, great.
At the last meeting, after you guys voted to move ahead with them, I submitted the purchase requisition, which is, I submit it and it's reviewed by finance and the business administrator. And it was put on hold until there was a distribution plan. And Leah could not come up with one as we're approaching year end. And since the funds need to be spent when the project is occurring, it was suggested that this item was going to move to 2023 until she could figure out a distribution plan for these. And that was the latest update that I had from Leah on that.
Okay. All right. So it has to be done. Another thing that has to be done in the same year. Okay. All right. That makes sense. So we'll move that one to the agenda. We'll keep that on the agenda for January meeting. All right. New tree giveaway. So we had asked commission members to kind of come back with a little homework completed regarding just to step back for a sec. Last year we ran 2021 we ran the tree giveaway as kind of like a submission project, and then in the last meeting we discussed the idea of the Shade Tree Commission putting forth ideas on where to put trees. So the homework was for commissioners to go around town and determine some candidate spots that we could vote on in this meeting or a future meeting for spring planting, and then based on the needs of the area, like determine what the cost and proposal might be. But what Peter smartly pointed out that because it could be viewed as commentary of any one person discussing somebody else's property, we decided to do this more anonymously. And so, Christy, I believe you've aggregated all the different submissions, but taken the attribution away from it, so we don't know who suggested each spot, so that nobody's neighbors miffed that anybody suggested that they need trees or something like that. Just trying to be. I thought that was a smart suggestion and guidance from Peter. So I guess I'll put it out there. So I think Christy's going to show us 5 different submissions, maybe some with pictures, some without. So maybe I have to imagine things in their mind's eye, or maybe we could just introduce these 5 things and we could all take the homework to go look in between now and the next meeting, and then maybe come back to Christy with our vote or something like that. However you'd like to handle it. Maybe actually, as I'm talking through it, maybe we do it that way with
Do you want me to show the submissions, Dave?
Yeah, I do. Yeah, I think that's a good.
Okay, and everyone see them?
I can see it. Yep.
Okay. So,
all right, let me just read through them here. Starting with Excel line number 4. A continuation along Hance in the area of Parker Ave. Comment being they've lost so many shade trees there due to emerald ash borer. I can envision that if you go, it's actually very close to where we put where the tree giveaway winner was last year, maybe even a block away. If you could envision, just knowing where those ash borer trees came down, as you go from down Hance from River toward the School of Millwood, on the left side, kind of halfway between there, is where Parker is. And there were some big trees that came out of those yards because they were diseased. I think that's an interesting suggestion, and it does seem bare over there. So
Great.
that's
I
just
agree.
'cause I go down that road every day, so I'm familiar with that one.
Mhm.
All right, reading the next one. 2nd Street, west of Hants. So kind of on the Knollwood School side. Hurricane Sandy damaged trees need to be replaced. I can't envision that. Is there a picture that goes along with that? By any chance?
There is not.
Okay. Well, all right. So maybe this is.
And add more clarity. I know you don't want to give away who submitted what, but.
Wait, I'm sorry. Say it again.
Someone on this call may have submitted that if they would like to add more color. I don't.
Was it Chris Larson? Come on, Chris, speak up.
I'll admit it. It was me. I know that area was there's, if you go down that road, there's a lot of sunlight on that road, and it used to be more shaded. They lost a lot of trees during Sandy. And I've always envisioned, since I've been on this commission, that we should really help to replace the trees on that road, because it used to be much more shaded. And now it's been almost 10 years.
It is 10 years.
Yeah. And it still is just as, sunny and less shaded than it, as it has been, the day after Sandy.
Yeah, I think as a commission, replacing shade trees that are storm damaged should be a priority of ours. I agree. I just wish I could envision it the way that I can see the other.
Well, like you suggested, I think we take all 5 of these and then maybe go around and take a look, and then, we can vote on it at the next meeting. I think that's a great idea.
All right, why don't we do that? So
Fairhaven is 2.112 square miles, so it's not going to take us that long.
I was actually struck, just as a commentary. I mean, I was struck by, I decided to start in my immediate area, which is sort of in the eastern end of River Road. And because I just figured, well, I'll cover a little territory. And I actually spent a lot of time looking for a hole to fill, which is kind of nice. It was kind of heartening to see that. I mean, that's not the case. There are certainly places that need trees, but I was heartened by the fact that I had to search pretty hard and had to broaden my kind of search pattern to find something. And I was also struck, and I don't want to derail the conversation, but I was also struck as I kind of pondered what, as you sort of become a little more aware of what you're looking at. And I know we've talked about this, but the number of old trees that have ivy growing on them is, and I'm pretty tuned into that, but when you really walk around and look, it's pretty profound. There's quite a few trees going back to Leah's door hangers, but so those are just 2 observations I had. But
yeah, no, I think that having the ivy as a kind of a feature on the door hangers, I think that will open the eyes to so many people as to how bad that actually is to the trees, for the trees. So, but yeah, when you're looking for it, it's surprisingly common throughout town. I mean, the ivy looks beautiful, like for Princeton University on a stone building, but but I get it.
I like the way it looks.
Yeah. The next one, I can envision the house that was lost in the fire and the house next to it damaged. I didn't realize a tree had been. It makes sense, but yeah, I guess a tree would have been damaged there. So it does. Yeah, it's kind of. Can you guys envision that on Fairhaven Road, south of the Sickle School, on the
They
west
cleared the
side?
one lot. It's totally clear now, so it's
But that's
Also potentials for. Sorry, go ahead.
I was gonna say that's a fair suggestion too. So
Yeah. Those are. I was just going to say those are also potentials for the Kwanzans, because they're on the side of the tree. That's that side of the road, which is sort of the easier side. So there's no power lines on that side.
yeah, and if they're bare of trees, I mean that's a pretty low hanging.
A couple of nice ones there. So
fair. Okay, fair to consider that too. As somebody who is probably going to get an offer for a cherry tree from this commission, maybe factor that in. New edition of Sickle School's bare and can use shade trees. Yeah, is there no plan from the school to have trees added in front of the Sickles addition? Maybe it's a Board of Ed question, but I think that would be a useful collaboration between Shade Tree and Board of Ed.
Yeah, it seems like both.
To find out for you. Oh, sorry.
No, go ahead, Tracy.
I was just gonna offer to find out for you if there are any landscape plans.
That would be helpful.
If
That'd be great.
only there were a Board of Ed member pending on this commission with this phone call right now.
If only.
If only.
Please find that out as well. Mr. The head of buildings, I'm in touch for Knollwood School for Sportsman Field. You can ask if you'd like as well.
Yeah, please do. Thank you.
Okay.
And then final submission, 46 Church Street. I would have to look on a map to see where that one is. I can't.
I'll out myself. I'm gonna undo. So I put that one down. It's really not the house itself. It's the spot. And I actually went back and looked, and it seems like, because when you're looking for a place to put a tree, you're really looking for kind of a hole in the sky, like where the sky opens up and there's no shade. And as it turns out, there was a tree there, like a really big tree that was taken down. At least according to Google Maps, as of 9 years ago, there was a giant tree there. And so it's really not the house, it's kind of that cluster. And it's just an area where there is, there's a notable absence of shade or tree cover.
No, and you're right. I mean, it's if we are a commission that is dedicated to providing canopy and therefore shade, that would be certainly part of it. That could also, so a resident actually got wind of us suggesting areas to plant trees and sent a really interesting website called the Tree Equity Score. And I'd never seen this before, but it's this whole algorithm that basically looks at, a lot of different factors, demographics, population, and comes up with a tree equity score somewhere between 30 and 100. And it's funny, Fairhaven, it's almost like it creates a circle, and the outer rim of the circle is all on the higher end of tree equity scoring, near 100 in the 90s, and all green, so to speak. Whereas the center of town is toward the lower end, which includes, it's kind of like River Road to 3rd between, where is it? Is this Fairhaven Road and Knollwood? Yeah, Hants River to 3rd between Hants and Fairhaven is the area that this algorithm, without diving too much into the math behind it, dedicates or suggests a lower tree equity than the areas surrounding. And probably that's something that could be proved out with a kind of a canopy, overhead view look, but it does include Church Street, depending on the cross street when. But it would also include the Hants Road suggestion as well. And by the way, I'll own that. I was the one that suggested the Hants, even though it was close to last year's tree giveaway winner. I feel bad that they lost all those big trees in the last year. But anyway, so tree equity scoring, something for all of us to learn more about.
Yeah.
But anyway, thank you to the resident who forwarded that idea along.
Yeah.
So what should we do? Let's take this list away as homework for the next meeting, and we can all make sure to go take a look at those 5 or 6 sites, and maybe look at the tree equity. Christy, could you send the tree equity link to everybody? And the list you've created there for the submissions.
Sure,
And
I'll send them together.
great, yeah. And as homework, we can agree to vote on a winner next next meeting for spring planting and discuss, we could discuss what types of trees and what the spend should be for that project. But yeah, anyway, I think that as a commission, this is, this type of stuff should be on every agenda, right? We want to be a net positive tree town, right? And so this is finding opportunities to plant trees is one of the things that we should prioritize going forward. And I think we've gotten there. We've really kind of got a lot of momentum on putting trees in the ground. So another great way to do it here with this new tree giveaway. Any questions, comments on that?
Mr. Chairman, I just wanted to offer that I think it's very helpful to keep this, whether you vote on one or two or three, just having a list underway. If that could just be a continual sort of catalog of opportunities, that would be great.
Yeah, I agree. We keep a hazard tree list. Why not a list of trees in need of tree?
There you go. Exactly.
But no, great, good suggestion. And I think we're off to a good start on that. Speaking of in need of trees, the Kwanzaa and cherry tree giveaway on Fairhaven Road. Mr. DeGotti, any updates?
So just a quick update before we get into the year end. So just a quick reminder what we're trying to accomplish. Originally we discussed a replacement program for the line of trees on Fairhaven Road next near Ridge Road by the nature area. And the thought was to plant new trees. A starting place was to plant new trees along Fairhaven Road and to extend that feeling of a row of flowering cherry trees. And I think the other thought there was to understand and display how newly planted trees might grow, particularly Kwanzaa and cherry trees might grow if we began replacing the old ones. So that was kind of what we were trying to do. An update so far. There are 5 trees in the ground at those new houses at 302 and 306. And those, I saw them actually today. They're looking good so far. I have identified 10 specific locations from that original kind of area map I did on Fairhaven Road for direct discussions with homeowners. I think at this point we understand how to give trees away and we understand how to source them. And the aim is to have things sorted so we can do an early spring planting. And if anyone has any specific suggestions for locations, I'm all ears.
It is by the way, it is a 2023 project estimate line item for the budget requested, requesting $4,500 to plant trees, Kwanzaa and cherries for that project alone. So hopefully that is something that the council approves. Otherwise, you have other funds available, Shade Tree Trust, et cetera, but we're trying to carve out some specific funds for that project, Peter. So
great. Thank you.
Excellent update. Thank you. Sportsman Field East Tree Lawn, Dr. Mike.
Yeah, so obviously I missed a few meetings, but I spoke with David Joy and they have a plan to remove the trees as long as we remove them, to remove the diseased trees. The original plan was to remove them over Thanksgiving break. That didn't happen. So the plan is now, while the kids are away for the next holiday break, to remove the trees. And then we both will touch base again with Sherry to ask again or talk about adequate replacements after that.
So thank you. I do understand that the tree removal permit did go through in the last week or so. So I think that there will be action on that.
Yes.
I'm not sure which trees of that tree line are going. I'm assuming it's probably most of them, if not all, or anything that's certainly not healthy.
Yeah, he said 5 to 6. I guess the diseased. I guess they're ash trees that are there.
Yeah.
5 ash trees, 1 American linden. They were all marked and walked through individually with Mr. Brooks.
So I think the question then becomes, so it seems like there's obviously progress on getting rid of the diseased trees. What do we want to do about trees going back in there? And I have a suggestion for the commission's consideration. So a further line item down lower is the Sunoco M&M Realty replacement tree planting. Just as a refresher, the Sunoco site, they're taking out 2 big black oaks on the east property line. It's a shame. They're old, mature trees providing great canopy, but the proposed building that was approved by planning to solve the affordable housing need that Fairhaven has for the state the driveway that's going to go into that building is unfortunately going to impact the root structures of those trees. And so the decision was made that the trees could be removed. Now, in the negotiation, we asked them for not 1, but 2 trees, each tree that they remove as replacements, and then we designated a certain size, deciduous. So they owe us, and they have reached back out about where we want them to go. 4 deciduous, I believe 4-inch at diameter at breast height. So these are not broomsticks. These are good sized trees of our choosing. And I was wondering if those 4, I don't know what trees we want to pick, but those 4 could maybe go to the Sportsman's Field tree line if the commission thought that wise. But it does seem like that could be a solution on how to put trees in the ground that are already paid for by an outside party. So I'd open that up to discussion. Any questions or comments?
Yeah, it's a great idea. Put them on sports.
All right. I mean, anybody think that would not be the appropriate use of those trees that were owed?
Yeah, I also think it's reasonable. I just make sure that, that they would survive and thrive in that new spot next to Sportsman, just to make sure and double check. And then otherwise, yes.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think it would be a collaborative effort with the tree experts, right, to determine which are the right trees for the right place. I mean, that's how deep is that lot? 150 probably. You could space big trees out pretty nicely, 4 trees on that property line. I think it would be appropriate for large trees to go there. And I think we have an opportunity to ask for 4.
Just a couple questions, if I may.
Sure.
The subdivision on 3rd that was approved and the trees removed, and now sort of pretty much the rest of the trees are going to come out. What is that property owner or that builder's obligation? Do we know what their tree replacement obligation is?
Off the top of my head, no. I don't think it's anything major, but because I do think that I recall that site was very overgrown and there was not much value determined in the tree resource that was there, that had been their legacy. I do think that I think there is a landscape plan, but I would have to defer to.
I can look that up and get back to you guys on that.
The reason I'm asking is because I do think that we could certainly see an obligation for that property owner to replace some of the trees along that west end of the residential property. Depending on how that formula worked out and what the tree replacement obligation is. I certainly understand what your point is, Dave. But I don't know that we should relieve them of their obligation. Maybe we'll look at the permit first and see what the actual replacement obligation is. And for some reason, as often as I've been over there, I can't picture the south edge of Sportsman Field, which is where a lot of the sun comes in, and big trees on that side would be nice. Because I assume you're talking about planting the 4 trees that would have been to replace the 2 big oaks at the M&M site along the Sportsman Field on the east side. Is that what you're thinking?
That's what I was thinking. Yeah.
So, if that private property owner there has an obligation to replace some of that buffer, right? We'll just call it buffer. And that is a right that it, I didn't, whatever wasn't part of the group that made these decisions, but it is right and appropriate for them to provide a buffer between the schoolyard and their private property. I'm not sure what the landscape plan is. I don't know what the tree permit is, but just from a planning standpoint, neighborhood cohesion and so on, they should have a buffer there. So can anyone picture that south side of Sportsman's? And what,
Yeah.
I know there's at least
Where
one tree.
the bike rack is there.
Yeah.
But that's closer to the school. I'm just looking at the map. I know there are a couple trees there, but I think there were trees planted to there are trees of different size there. You have some big mature ones on the south end, and you have some smaller, more recently planted trees, I believe, of the same type. I'm going to venture a guess and say they're sweet gums. But I don't know that for sure.
Yeah.
But I think I just envision from my walks in that area, like there's like different size trees, because like there was an effort made at some point to try to replace, but in the same kind of spaced out, or same spacing, just different age trees. And so probably worth taking a look at. And I hear your point, Tracy, about if there is an obligation from the homeowner or the developer to replace the buffer, why give them the out of the trees from the Sunoco site?
Yeah, and you're talking about the big 4-inch replacement trees going on the fields, right? But close to that property line?
Yes, yeah. I would want them on the Board of Ed property, the Sportsman Field.
Right, I got you. I guess we should, I just want to offer that we should know what the obligation is to the private party in this discussion, and then consider how, the commission should consider how it wants to deploy these other trees, which are it's a nice resource that you have to work with. And that might be the best place to put them, but you kind of want to see what they're going to plant.
Oh, fair enough. Let's add it to the agenda for next meeting. And Doc Mike, it might be, would you be able to update David Joy on what we talked about tonight? And and like kind of, I think Tracy's got a very valid point. Like, let's understand what the resolution states for the private property owner's obligation on the property line. And then I guess in the next month or so, we'll also see where what has come out of there, So yeah, I think it's maybe you're right. Maybe we can't make any final decision on this just yet. We don't have all the information. And
well, I think we still have time. They still have to remove the trees. So yeah, I'll broach the subject with David and we'll go from there.
Great.
And I think in the meantime, we can get the resolution of compliance, which should speak to the tree replacement.
Sure, I'll look that up.
Great.
Okay, excellent. Any other questions, comments on either of the Sportsman Field line item or the Sunoco M&M replacement tree line item? Okay, 2 for 1.
May I offer one other thing? I was going to do this, but the business district, and you're talking about tree replacement, and we're losing 2 big trees, which is a dreadful loss. But it is doubly, it has I think, an amplified loss, because mature trees in a business district are very hard to come by and almost impossible to replant. We have a lot of residential in our B1 and B2, so we have a few more opportunities than what is typical of main streets, but that also is that area that I think you were talking about that has the lower tree equity score, because we just don't have the canopy that we would want to have. So any loss in that area is kind of devastating, because it's almost like a permanent loss. And I just wanted to flag that for us together as a community, so we can maybe keep that in mind as we think about how best to rebuild our canopy without overlooking the business district.
Yeah, I think that tree equity scoring, I urge you all to check that out. It is kind of like, once you think about it, you're like, you do envision the lack of a canopy kind of around the baseball fields are a good example on Third, the community center fields. There's trees around the south and west, but it is an open space, and yeah, you're right. I can't think of. I know that that playground is also an area that a lot of people are focusing on. For a reason, there are reasons why we don't have a plan, but that's a
Yeah.
plan that people are eager to see a plan be approved for tree replacement by the playground. So no, fair point. I think like I'm envisioning like Bicentennial Hall. There's some big trees in there, right?
Yeah, there are. They're landmark status there.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Anyway, no, fair point. Something to think about. You're right. Devastating loss of those two at the Sunoco site, and maybe those 4-inch DBH trees should be, you could make an argument that they should stay in the business district. So,
Good. Yeah, I don't know where, but maybe but I'll take a look as I didn't think of that, but maybe that is.
well, all right. We'll discuss this next month.
Okay.
Thank you for pointing that out. All right, moving on. The native species list project. I saw the update. Chris and Peter, do you guys want to share with the group?
I was not made aware of an update. I submitted it at the last meeting, and
Yeah, that was it.
and
Chris,
I think distributed to the other members. Is that?
that is correct. So
Oh,
my takeaway from the last meeting, one of them, review native list, and which I did within the last week. So it was, it did seem more recent to me than less than a month ago. So anyway,
there you go.
all right, then I was going to add. I didn't see. I thought the list was great. There was definitely some trees that I'd never heard of on there before, and if they're native, that's really tremendous. I wanted to know why like black oak and white oak and sycamores weren't on there. Is that something that would they be appropriate? Are they native? I just feel like they're kind of some of the most desirable trees around here. Like the buttonwood sycamore type trees, and then the oaks. I know we had another oak on there. I think what's the state tree? The red oak?
State tree, New Jersey state tree. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, those are. The list was there were. I mean, there weren't a tremendous number of trees on this list. Obviously, I don't want to give everybody a term paper to look over. Wanted the residents to use it as a guide and not be kind of blown away by the a whole too much information. Those trees you mentioned, they're large, very large trees. Yeah, they came up in the searches, but not as much as the trees that were put on the list.
Okay. All
But
right.
yeah, they are native. They can be put on that list. I could update it and most certainly include those.
Yeah, I'm not requesting that we add or make it. I'm not trying to make draw a line in the sand on any specific tree, but like I wondered if townspeople and who might be interested in the white and the black oaks and the sycamores, only because they are already kind of prominently featured in some parts of town. So sycamores in particular.
Yep.
Anybody else have any feedback on that or thoughts?
I had a few thoughts, if now's the right time. It
Sure,
might be
please.
a good idea to have the one thing about leaving something off a list that's for guidance is it might cause people to question what they either have or their neighbor has. I'm sort of reinforcing the point you just made, Dave. So out of an abundance of offering people a broader palette. Even though it might become more like an essay, I'll stop short and not a term paper, but maybe more of an essay. But I think with the pictures too, it's a little bit easier for people to recognize something that looks familiar to them. And if there's more of them, I think there's comfort in that. If they don't see the picture of something they're used to seeing, it may have the opposite effect. And the other thing is that this is kind of a nice tool to right, it's educational in a way, in a soft way. If people are looking through it, then they want information. So probably more is better. That was one of I did like that it was broken into think about the size at full maturity, those things were good, and that's in there. So that would be my only suggestion, having to do with the substantive part of it. And then I need to pass on to you guys some feedback. There, as much as we all, like in the commission and discussions and stuff, understand the importance of a shade tree and the canopy, there is, as it turns out, because I've gotten some emails, the mayor's gotten an email, and he shared it with me. There's at least one resident, and we think because one thinks this way, there may be others who may not fully grasp the role of a shade tree versus, say, an arborvitae. And therefore, if they plant 12 arborvitaes, how come that doesn't count for one native shade tree? And I wanted to just kind of report that here for you guys. And perhaps there's a way to address that, maybe the role of a shade tree, because it's about the canopy and it's about the ecology. And there might be a way in the guidance document that you're building now, to kind of touch on that. Because an arborvitae, even 12 of them, will never equal one native oak.
Sure. Yeah, we can, probably put in some definitions and also some, just some simple pictures to compare the two different. Yeah, sure.
Yeah, some pictures would be good, or even, I'm thinking of a diagram. I don't know if I've seen this in my life. If I have, I'll find it and send it to you. But even a diagram that just shows a shade tree as a habitat to support wildlife and their function as pollinators and what that does for the broader picture. If I can find something like that, I'll send it to you. Be
Sure.
a simple thing to drop in.
So I think I'm hearing a section on sort of why shade trees are important. Like what a shade tree is and why they're important. I mean, not an essay, but a kind of a brief synopsis.
I'm surprised to hear and find out that, in fact, folks don't know that basic thing. And I get it. If you're not paying attention to that, then you wouldn't know. So as obvious as it seems to us, I think it's a good idea to just put it out there.
It's a good point.
Sure.
So what do we think about the white oak, the black oak, the sycamore that Dave recommended? They're kind of giant. They're kind of a giant class of tree, right? I mean, they're big trees. So maybe we could make a section with, I'd be happy to do that, but maybe we could make a section with, really big trees, or if you have lots and lots of room, or we could put a couple in there that to your point, Tracy, are very familiar, right? That people would, I don't know. What do we think about that?
Absolutely.
I think it's,
we
go ahead.
can easily add more trees to this. It's kind of a work in progress. We'll easily just add them. We could classify them, like you said, giant trees, giant shade trees. I'm already thinking of a diagram of, this is a shade tree. This is not a shade tree. Thinking like, a big oak tree, shade tree, arborvitae, not a shade tree, something like that as well.
Maybe demonstrate the shadow that they cast, might be illustrative as well.
Yes. Put a sundial underneath it.
All right, cool. It's a living document. We'll agree to continue to discuss. Okay, cool. Excellent. Thank you, guys. We talked about doorknob hangers. The next one is there's an Eagle Scout project, and this came up in the past 2 weeks. So the latest Eagle Scout project for planting trees needs one more sponsor. I guess if they have 15 trees planted and 14 of them were sponsored by individual families or other people in town, other entities, I was contacted and asked if the Shade Tree Commission would be interested in being the final sponsor for this this one tree of a bunch of planted trees. It would be a $200 spend out of our $5,800 shade tree trust balance. And I, because any sort of funds being spent, I think need a vote, or else I wouldn't dream of spending your money without your approval, guys. But I thought I would put it out to a vote to see if we wanted to be that final sponsor for the Eagle Scout project. So I will make a motion to approve a $200 spend for the Fairhaven Shade Tree Commission to sponsor the final tree in the Eagle Scout project that is going on in Fairhaven Fields. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Tracy's laughing. Is that an objection, Tracy? I don't know.
I see the chairman looking for
Yes,
an
I'm just
opposition.
scrutinizing to see if anybody's gonna flinch for any reason,
Who dare opposes me?
Those are two things I love. It's a tree, and it's a future shade tree, and it's a scout project. So those are two things that are close to my heart. So I believe that is a motion that carried and was approved. And so I will let the project, and Christy, procedurally, do you need anything else from me on that? I mean,
Yeah, I need a quote, and it's very close to the end of the year, so I'll hopefully process this ASAP. Oh, did I get in touch with Mark Olson for that? I know that's where I did our family.
Yeah,
I believe so. I'm
You
just
can probably, hopefully create an invoice for me. Okay.
hold on. Let me just confirm $200.
Okay.
Search my emails real quick. Agenda to add. Where was it? Yeah, it must be. I just don't see it right here on my email.
That's fine. I can email you both tomorrow, and hopefully we'll get it all taken care of tomorrow.
Thank you so much. All right, excellent. Fingers crossed we're not too late, but thank you for everyone's approval there. 2023 Shade Tree Commission Action Plan, Dave Palo. I have started this. What I started doing was categorizing all the different, it's not well written just yet, but it is more kind of in bullet points. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to complete this and submit it to Christy to have her circulate it. If I could just share my screen real quick, can I do that, Christy, just to show it to people? And it's
Yeah, you should be able to.
share screen. You guys see that? Fairhaven Shade Tree Commission 2020 action plan?
Yep.
So, the idea being, categorizing things like into administrative projects, which includes tree inventory, CFMP, tree protection ordinance, action plan, more like trees in the ground, added some numbers that were asked for in the budget for 2023. And then, collaboration amongst other kind of commissions in town, and then community outreach. So that's kind of the themes I was working on. I don't know how much more prose I'll add to this, but I think it's something that we can look to as not only it could keep us kind of on task, I think, as far as what the action or like the general theme of things should be for the year. Am I missing anything here? I know that we have other accomplishments, but this is supposed to be kind of more forward looking, I think.
I don't know if, depending on what happens at the council level with the ordinance, if you have increased responsibilities with that, if you would like to add it into one of these, I guess we'll wait and see what happens with ordinance.
Yeah, fair point. Let's put that here.
I think that would become an administrative function of the commission. And the fees associated, the professional fees that would be associated with that you may just want to identify that you understand that there may be professional fees if, in case you have to have, in case you need to consult with the tree expert, then of course there'd be fees. You can just put it as a question mark.
Okay, well, that's good, and good point about the but the tree ordinance and what that might do for us.
Dave, I think, sorry, I was
Hey,
late.
Joel.
Hi, I think that the one other thing, I don't know if you want to note it on here or if you just want to
Anything, yeah.
put that it's included in the tree inventory, is the purchase of the software to manage the inventory once it's done, which is included, of course, in the estimate for the tree inventory, but that will be like an ongoing administrative task for someone.
So ongoing, say ongoing software updates, like, is that kind of like adding trees to it? I mean, or,
management on software management, or yeah.
okay. Again, this is just kind of broad strokes, and I'm going to refine this a little further and get it out to Christy to circulate to you guys for more scrutiny. But I just wanted to let you know that I was following on it.
Dave, is this more forward thinking or also including things we do annually?
Oh, annually? No, anything that we do annually that you know, you might like the Arbor Day type of stuff would be something to put on there for sure.
That's probably community outreach, I would say.
Well, what I'll do is, like I said, I'll please look for this as an email from Christy at some point, and I'd love anybody's thoughts on what could be an annual event that is part of our 2023 action plan that would be just carried from year to year. I'm all ears on how to make this more thorough. So yeah, please speak up. So thank you. Let's see here.
Might want to add something about like member continue CEUs and training to take and annual reports, like Tree City and all that, accreditations.
Yep. Good call. Okay. I'll add those and pass them along.
Be one of your programs too,
Sorry, what was that?
the big tree hunt.
BTH. Yeah, I'm sure there will be other annual events that come to mind after we get off the call, but please keep them coming. I'll add them. Any other questions on that?
It's somewhat related.
Sure.
On December 19th is our last council meeting for 2022. And in my mind, I'm thinking that it would be good for me to offer kind of a recap in the liaison function I have. So, and I'm doing that as I'm able to, because I don't get a big amount of time, but what would be something you'd feel like if you had to choose, say your, top 3 things that what would you like me to speak to as maybe a recap or even a forward-looking aspirational type of thing?
If you're asking me personally, as far as what I think,
I'm asking you and your commission. Yeah.
well, if I was going to pick 3 things that we've worked on this year as highlights, I would say advancing the tree ordinance and all the work that went into that would be one of those 3. I would include the tree inventory research that Jill did as another major time investment and a success if it goes through. And then I would generalize and say tree planting projects, like that's something that's like we have very concrete tree planting projects now on this agenda where it was pie in the sky 3 years ago. Now we have a Kwanzaa cherry tree giveaway. That's even asking for a specific budget. We have this new tree giveaway and that we're iterating on with a $9,800 budget request. We're talking about partnering with the planning board to take trees from their resolutions to, to put into the ground. I just think that trees in the ground would be kind of the third thing that I would say. I really don't. I don't want to belittle anybody else's projects or anything. I just think in my mind, those were some of the heavier lifts in the last couple of years, so does anybody disagree or have another suggestion? So, maybe that's, take that on advisement. I mean, that's just, that's off the top of my head, but if anybody else has anything else, please feel free to update Councilwoman Cole.
Sounds good.
I understand that meeting is also going to be acknowledging the 100th year of scouting in Fairhaven. And it's unfortunately, and I would have loved to attend that one. We are away. So it is not, would have been another couple reasons to go to that one, but we are not around, unfortunately.
I'll share
okay.
your regrets.
Yes, thank you. Please do. So is that can that count as the council update line item?
Yes, I have one question for Jill, if I may. Having to do with the tree inventory. And that is, I guess my question is it, Jill, is it your understanding from some of the communication? I don't know why this is so slippery in my mind. It keeps moving, but did your research show that there are grants available to support towns that are trying to start tree inventories to fund them? And if so, does it hinge on any of the planning documents that we have to update and continue to get better at?
Yes, there are grants available. I'm glad you brought this back up since I missed the beginning of the meeting. Yes, the major one comes out in, you could apply for it in May, and then they award it in September. And then there is a matching component that we would have to plan to meet, and we could do that through like financially or through hours associated, with a rate attached to an hour associated with volunteering. The hours that we put in ahead of time will not count towards it. So once the grant is awarded, then that's when hours start counting. So, our hours as a commission would count, some of the hours that borough employees would put towards any work towards it would count. But the estimate, it's like a 50, if I remember correctly, it's like a 50-50. So, we would have to come up with in some form of, either, like I said, financial or hours, half of what the grant was. I was a little bit confused on what Teresa replied back to that email today.
Okay.
Because from our conversations here, I thought that memo was simply to initiate the process of getting the RFPs out there, which would be necessary in order for us to apply for the grant, is to actually have some sort of proposal. So I mean, from maybe I didn't understand what that memo is, what the purpose of that memo was, but that's how I understood that memo to be. And I thought that was kind of like the way to get the ball rolling, without waiting on, the budget to be approved for 2023 at the council level.
Yeah. I'll reread her letter. Sometimes I have to scan them quickly because there's a lot of them. But what is the name of the grant with the May deadline?
It comes out in May. The deadline is in July, usually the first week of July. It's through the Urban and Community Forestry Grant. It is the Resiliency Grant.
Oh,
Yeah.
that? Okay. Yes.
Yeah.
Of course it isn't. Oh, yeah, okay. All right, I'll put my notes together and read her email,
Okay,
and follow up with you if I am not clear about, what I'm gonna report on
Okay.
the 19th. But, and then we'll go from there.
okay, all right. Yeah, because I was pretty concerned when she said that that wouldn't be approved till May. I was like, well, that won't work.
So what she, if, one of the things, and this is brief, but there's a whole budget process,
Right.
that literally the budget, and I've only been through it once, obviously, but it doesn't technically get approved until the end of May or early June. So we get halfway through our year on basically temporary, monthly allocations, with knowing that we're going to approve the budget at that mid-year point. You know, I guess it just takes that long. But it shouldn't stop us from, you know, doing the proper planning and pursuing grants and so on.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So you'll have a sense before we start putting, like, actually writing, when the grant is released with the requirements in May, we'll have a sense at least of whether or not this is going to be.
Well, issuing the RFP, we obviously want to do that with a commitment to follow through, because, you know, I'm going to use the word illegal. It's improper form to ask people to submit proposals if we're not sure we're going to do it. So on some level, there has to be a commitment on the part of the governing body to pursue a tree inventory. And again, what we talked about earlier in the meeting was the first step is workshop, because as much as we've talked about it here, the council hasn't talked about it at all. I mean, I've touched on it in my council reports, which, you know, are about 5 minutes long. So it is deserving of greater deliberation. And that's probably a good time for you to think about being on the agenda and coming in and all that stuff. So, but yeah, I personally don't see why that can't advance while we're putting the budget together. And then
Okay.
for,
I think interestingly, like in all the people that I've talked to, before I understood that the RFP had to come directly from the borough, the idea that I was requesting a proposal contingent on a grant was not a foreign concept
Okay.
to these people that do tree inventories. It's pretty common. So I don't know if there's some legally binding thing that coming from the borough, it would be different, but that they didn't bat an eye at that idea. That they would.
those have been that's how I've been advised.
Yeah.
Yeah, that when you issue an RFP, it's with the understanding you intend to commit to. Otherwise, people would be, you know.
No, I know, and
I appreciate
commitment with the I guess it was more the you know, the contingency on the grant being awarded.
Right, which makes sense, and we can put that in there for sure.
Yeah.
Okay, great, thanks.
Yep.
Thank you. Any other comments on any of the project updates or agenda items before we kick it over to the public participation? Great. If anybody dialed in as an attendee would like to speak, please use the raise your hand feature on the Zoom interface.
Bonnie, I'm going to move you over. Hi. We
Hi,
can
Bonnie.
hear.
Thanks for
Hi,
joining us.
everybody. I just wanted to thank you for adopting the last tree over in the Church Street Trail project. That now makes 55 trees planted this year over there. That's a pretty big accomplishment.
Yeah. What is it? What are the makeup of all the different trees? I know there's oaks and maples.
There's linden, there's oaks, there's maples, there's crabapple, there are birch. hornbeam. We really tried to do all native trees. And Mark does have a great list of native trees as a resource if you want to look at that. I mean, he really has done a lot of research on that. If you need any, reference to add to your list, because I agree with Tracy that the more native trees you put on there, the better, so that everybody realizes. And I think there's only one bad oak, and it's a sawtooth oak, which is an invasive foreign. And that's the only one. There is one, I've seen one in town, but besides that, I think every other oak is wonderful. As are most of the maples and everything else. But and yeah, I also agree with Tracy on those two black oaks. It absolutely kills me on that Sunoco station that those are coming down. I was kind of looking at the curb that they left, like the entrance, and it looks like they almost left room to maintain them. Like, is there any way they could leave them for the time being and just see if they've survived, because their roots are so deep, because they're over 100 years old? Like, maybe they can hang in there. Like, just don't give up on them. Is there any way to beg for their, just to spare them the, taking down? It breaks my heart.
It's a hard one. The trade-off was an approval of a plan for the affordable housing mandate that we have in town, as every municipality in New Jersey has, with the negotiation of trying to, replace. You can never replace a 100-year-old black oak, but I mean, I think we tried our best. But we could always lay down in front of the bulldozer, I guess.
There's just an idea. I just, the sportsman field, putting the trees, are you going to put them, I guess, on the school side, right? Because the driveway of those new properties are right up against the fence. So all the trees would be planted, obviously, in a safe place over.
Yeah, that as I suggest that area, I'm envisioning, with, in from, there's a slope.
There's a hill, yeah.
Yeah, and so like I think you would have to be still on the top of the hill.
There's
But
plenty of room. I mean, and there's a baseball diamond there, which could use more shade too. I think they took down an old tree.
yeah, no, so I recognizing that you don't want to put that right on the property line, you want it in. But I think, it's, using the tree experts as kind of a resource on that. I envision the trees going there because I think it's a nice, easy, it's round peg and a round hole over here, right? So we can put that, that peg in that hole and satisfy a couple things that are initiatives for tree planting. But I'm indifferent as to whether it's up the hill or down the hill.
Yeah.
I was just trying to
So,
find out for the
Dave, they clear cut the whole, almost the entire lot. There are a couple, I know that they're dead ash, but there are a couple trees there that are perfectly fine. They're not just going to clear cut that whole thing, that whole line, are they? I mean, there's one huge tree that I think is
I haven't
perfectly
seen that.
healthy.
I have not.
But they put the garage right next to it, which is super unfortunate.
Always death, for always root structure impact. I have not seen the actual permit approval, but I know that it was approved, right, Christy?
Yes.
Is it every tree or is there something remaining?
I don't know. They met on a site visit, the school building and grounds administrator with Bill Brooks, and they went through tree by tree, which was going to be marked. Juniors is going to be doing the work, and 5 ash trees that are dead and 1 American linden that is dead. That's what's on the permit.
Sounds like if we're believing the written text, Bonnie, it's dead trees. But
Yes, that's what the permits, that's what was decided by our forester, that they're dead.
Okay.
There's, this is bringing up a thought, bigger picture, when you guys are looking at, bigger picture, new ordinance, eventually permit process. We don't know what the way the permit application process works right now. Nobody really knows what's on the site. We only know that which the applicant is seeking to remove. And I wonder if that would, do 2 things. Give the commission or the administrator the ability to see how much of the canopy broadly speaking, is going to be compromised, what would be remaining. And then also it can help to provide data for the tree inventory. Not that we're going to inventory every private property, but I happen to be looking at a list of all of the permits, not excluding the one Christie's just told us about, or we all know about that one, but my point is, like, there's 101 applications here. That could be 101 new data points for the inventory, but it would also give us kind of color on the canopy and what we're losing. It's just a thought, and because all we'd have to do is change the form, the application a little bit, then they'd have to specify, these are all the trees we have, these are the 2 we want to remove. Sorry, that was the rest of the thought.
Oh,
Well,
that's
yeah,
interesting.
actually, it's an interesting point that identifying what's staying is as valuable as identifying what's being removed, right?
Very succinctly said. Yes, exactly. It could be useful.
Because I guess the current tree permit, and I believe there's applicants have the ability to kind of sketch their property, right? And like identify living trees and trees that are being removed.
Correct.
Does it, it's something in your discussion at council level for the tree ordinance. I think it's worth mentioning that, yeah, not only do we get the data, but it kind of almost, like identifying the trees that are staying, I think is going to be helpful in situations like this,
Yeah. It's
So
almost like you want to preserve some of the canopy if possible. So it becomes part of the, even if it's a silent criteria, it kind of helps to inform the.
yeah, well, even just, Ms. Torcivia asking us like, if is any living tree staying, we only know which dying trees are being taken out. We don't know, but except for the very healthy living, northern red oak that's in the middle of the tree line. It's
Right. That would be good to know.
Yeah.
I'll dog ear that there'll be an administrative review once there's an ordinance, as we're zeroing in on it. And in that administrative review, the function, how this thing is going to function will include the application process and the actual form. So I'll see if I can get it embedded in there at that time.
Excellent.
Dave, I just had one other thing. I just was having worked with Mark and planting all these trees over this spring and summer. A couple times we came across these very large trees that were totally root bound because they had been grown in these pots for so long and the roots were twisted all around. And the fellow from Rutgers, I don't know if you were on the tour, Dave, he said that they will never unravel. In fact, you have to cut them to free the roots to grow properly. So I just would encourage you. I think we're very stuck on having some immediate gratification. And I think that, if you did the Arbor Day giveaway or something and you ordered a bunch of, couple 2 feet tree, 2-foot trees and gave them to people and with the promise that they'd water them, like they are going to catch up in 10 years. It's not going to be immediate, but they will, and they'll be healthier. And I think that's really an important thing to tell people, don't be discouraged, start small, but take care of them. And eventually they will catch up to the big ones. I've seen it done in my own yard. So anyway, keep planting. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Bonnie. Anybody else from the public want to comment?
I don't see any, Dave.
Okay. Before we adjourn, the next Shade Tree Commission meeting is January 4th, 2023. We are going to be in need of a few more volunteers. We are losing Councilwoman-elect Ms. Hoey. So we need a replacement Shade Tree Commissioner for her. I was also received notice today that another one of the Shade Tree Commissioners is also going to be stepping away from Shade Tree. And unfortunately, I also am going to be stepping away from Shade Tree this coming year. I'm still going to be involved in town planning board, but I'm going to take a larger role in the scouting organization, and I need to give that my full attention. So this has been a really rewarding experience for me these past 3 years and 2 years as chair. It's a much different commission now than when we joined, and it's been great. And I appreciate all your effort and all your volunteerism and service. And thanks for doing that for me. And yeah, but unfortunately, this is probably going to be my last live Shade Tree meeting. But I'll send. I've already talked to the mayor. I'll send my notice to him in the next couple of days. But I will be finishing out the open tasks between now and the end of the year and in December. So just want to say thanks to everybody for all your continued efforts. And I'm sure our paths will cross again in some capacity here. But yeah, good job, everybody. Thank you for your efforts.
Well
Thank
done,
you.
Dave. Thank you.
Thank you, Dave.
Thank you.
Does anybody have anything else that they want to add before we adjourn? Think of some other volunteers, because I think that's going to be 3 seats we need filled for next year. So and I've got some ideas that I'll pass along to the mayor. There is a certain person that does attend regularly as attendee, who might be here tonight, who might be a good candidate for Shade Tree Commission.
Put your money where your mouth
I
is.
believe public comments are over at this point. All right, everybody. Happy holidays, Merry Christmas, and we'll speak again soon. Thanks all.
Merry
Happy
Christmas.
holidays.
Hey, everyone.
Yeah.
Better.
Good night, Christy.
Good night.